If you like the sweet science, get ready to talk boxing on the Gloved Fist podcast with top boxing writers Frank LOTIERZO and Jack Hirsch. Frank, a former amateur boxer out of Philadelphia, writes for NY Fights and can be seen on the Boxing Channel. Jack, an amateur boxer who competed in the New York Golden Gloves, was a 6-term president of the Boxing Writers Association. And now, here's Frank LOTIERZO and Jack Hirsch.
And we're back. Welcome to Glove Fist on this June 1st. To me, the kickoff of summer. My name is Frank LOTIERZO, former writer, full-time observer, try to be more, joined by 6-term former president of the Boxing Writers Association of America, Jack Hirsch. Jack, I know you're a New Yorker. The Knicks are back in the finals for the first time since when? 99?
1999, and it's if they do win this, okay, it's going to turn the city upside down. It's going to be crazy happy, the celebrations, and it'll be a scene. And it'll mean a lot more to New York to win than San Antonio, because San Antonio has some wins in the future. And Frank, I thought you were going to start off with your second favorite sport next to boxing, because there were a couple of big deals in football. And your hated Philadelphia Eagles struck again. They got rid of A.J. Brown as predicted. They covered him by drafting Will Lemon in the draft wide receiver. And they have Devontae Smith. And they got a number 1 and a number 5. Howie Roseman does it again.
They don't mess around.
Value. They get top value. And Myles Garrett going to the Rams there.
I was telling Brian before he came on, thank the Lord that Myles Garrett didn't go to the Eagles. I'm glad about that. A.J. Brown, as you said, everybody knew that was going to happen. But you know what? They go if they wanted out of him. He helped them get a second ring. He's got a ring. He's going to make a lot of money. And you know what? The Patriots were in the bowl last year. Drake may have a good future. So it's like he's not done.
Yeah, we got to compare athletes in other sports to boxers. And Myles Garrett would be David Benavidez. If I had to draw a comparison, impact and everything, strength, the whole thing.
That's a fair comparison. I like that.
Good deal for the Pats and the Eagles. Boxing-wise, Frank, I'm not sure what exactly is the biggest single story of the week. But last week we had a lot to talk about, a lot of new material. This week a lot is happening. I'm not sure what exactly the centerpiece is. What's the big
we could
story?
dovetail off of last week, Jack, because Usyk fought last week. Didn't look good. Yeah. And now the WBC has ordered that he has to defend against Ajit Kabiel next. And, you know, Kabiel's been a guy who's knocking off contenders, good contenders, not old guys. And, you know, he's been there, and I think he brings a style that I think troubles Usyk, the fact that he is a pressure guy. He works the body. He's a southpaw, too. I believe he's a southpaw, right?
Yeah. But yeah. One thing that you and I agree on 100%, titles have to be won and lost in the ring, but occasionally, in a rare instance, there's an exception. And if Usyk fights a rematch with Rico Harivin, if he has a rematch, like we talked about last week, I'm all for stripping him of the title. That's already ludicrous. I don't care how good a fight that Rico gave him the first time. The bottom line is Rico lost.
He was stopped.
He got stopped, and as great a fight as he fought, and as unfair as the scorecards might have seemed to some who thought Rico was winning the fight, that's fine. I'm one of them, okay? The bottom line is most people feel Rico probably would have gotten stopped in round 12. That's like the consensus. We'll never know for sure. But the bottom line is Usyk gave him an opportunity. The WBC and everyone else was willing to give Usyk a pass for one fight because he's been a great champion. Now,
he's been a fighting champion.
Some people might say there's a little precedent. They might point out, well, Joe Frazier after Ali 10 months later fought Terry Daniels and Ron Stander. But the bottom line at that time, Ali knew he was going to be fighting Frazier again. Everyone knew they were going to fight again. Ali wasn't saying strip him of the title. I got to fight him right now. People forget that Ali was biding his time, as was Frazier about the second fight. Neither guy was rushing into it. They knew it was going to happen, but it was going to happen on their watch, at their pace. There wasn't any urgency at that point. Frazier wasn't ducking Ali. Ali wasn't demanding Frazier fight him at that moment. But this situation is different.
No, because Rico just came out of nowhere. He jumped in front of everybody. He made a good showing, but guess what? There are guys that are more more deserving in that opportunity, and Caballero is probably the main guy. You know what? Let Rico fight Joshua. Let him fight Fury. Let him fight somebody else. Let him show that he wasn't just a one-night fluke, and that Usyk looked past him, came in heavy, and maybe he's even on the decline. I want to see a real fight. Caballero's a real fight. He brings the style to give Usyk trouble, and I want to see that. I don't want to see more gimmicks. Let Rico fight somebody else, beat somebody good, and then you know what? Then he's in line.
Frank, it's more than Caballero. Caballero's earned this opportunity, but he hasn't been Caballero, a lights-out contender, but he's earned the opportunity. I'll give you an example. Let's say Usyk turned around and he stunned us, and he said, I want to fight Moses Otamu next, and Otamu accepted, and they were going to fight. You absolutely don't strip Usyk. No way. No way. But a rematch with Rico, I can't stomach it.
There's two or three guys ahead of him.
But let's say they stripped, Usyk would get stripped, and we would actually back the WBC. What fight, Frank, would determine a legitimate heavyweight champion? That's the tricky part about it. Don't tell me Otamu Hrgovic. That doesn't do it for me. If Otamu fought, let's say fought Daniel Dubois, I might, consider that, for the real heavyweight championship.
But Jack, if Usyk is still undefeated and he gets stripped, that's almost like when Ali lost the title. Usyk didn't lose the title in the ring, so to me, he's still the best heavyweight, and he's the champ. So whoever wants to be the champ has to beat him.
No, but if he won't fight them, if he's going to fight Rico again, that's what I mean.
That puts him in a bad situation. Jack, that puts him in a bad situation, but still, I can't, there's no way I can acknowledge, I don't care what this body say. Usyk is the alpha dog heavyweight in the world. He's the best heavyweight in the world, and the only way he loses that title is if he retires or he gets beat. They can strip him of it, but we know today the titles don't mean anything, and he won't need the title. Everybody knows he's the best heavyweight.
Yeah, well, now we have a question whether he really is the best heavyweight in the world. He's earned it on paper, obviously, and passed.
And in the ring, he still earned it, Jack, because he has not been defeated. He didn't look good his last time out, but he's still the man. He has the best wins. He's been the most consistent. It's hard for me to even take it serious that as much as I think Otamu might be the future, him fighting Caballero or him fighting Wardley or Dubois, I just can't. It's just like, you know what? They would be a title holder. They would be Jimmy Ellis, the winner, and Usyk is Ali until he comes back or faces him.
Well, there was a press conference today, speaking of heavyweights. Anthony Joshua and Christian Pranga took place in London. Okay, we have Pranga on this show. We'll have him on. If he should defeat Joshua, pull a massive upset, we'll have him come on again, and talk about it. But I kind of like.
Let's have him on if he loses.
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of like Joshua's plan, how he's going about things. He says he wants to beat Pranga, then beat Tyson Fury, then fight for the title. And you want to know something? If he does that, he would have earned a title shot, I feel, because he has it kind of mapped out. Not to take the long break. The Fury fight will take place by the end of the year. Fury is going to be taking a tune-up, which is going to be interesting to see who Fury picks as an opponent, because these tune-up fights, they're not the gimmies that people always think they are. They could end like disastrously. Like we could even talk about one of our favorite fighters, one of our Jerry Quarry, favorite of yours, a favorite of mine. He before the second Frazier fight, remember the tune-up he took against
Joe Alexander
at the Nassau Coliseum?
he got dropped in the first round.
Heavily. And
he was hurt.
An Iron Chin Quarry who would stand up to the biggest punches, okay, gets dropped heavily by Joe Alexander.
Who had like 10 fights, right, Jack?
Yeah, Joe Alexander was a gimme going into the fight. And it happens. I mean, you could never tell.
The only difference is, Jack, Jerry Quarry fought. These guys say don't fight, and they're always taking tune-ups, and that's what I don't like. Fury and Joshua should be going at it now, not more tune-ups, and that makes me think that there's a good chance that we'll never see that fight because Joshua, to me, could lose to Pranger. He could lose. Well, if he fights Fury, then I think he loses. But if he takes too many tune-ups in between, they're not going to fight. Fury could lose to anybody good. They should just be fighting next. I'm tired of the dance. It's like those guys have been pros for years.
But if they have a tune-up and then fight one another, they really are showing. How do I explain it?
If that happens, Jack, yes. But we don't know what's going to happen.
The winner would have earned, a chance to fight for the title. It wouldn't be that both guys were damaged good. Let's both guys fight, show they could look good. But I'm getting a little tired of the Anthony Joshua hype machine. Now, Joshua himself seems to be a decent guy, and we're sensitive that he was coming off a terrible experience, the car accident, two of his
friends, right?
Yeah, listen, our heart goes out to him and, more so the victims and their families, So we understand that. But before he fought, he got stopped by Daniel Dubois. We heard this was kind of like a more focused Joshua before Dubois, and look what happened. Then it was supposed to be Joshua on the comeback trail, turning over a new leaf, and he struggled with Jermaine Franklin, a guy he was supposed to stop impressively, and went to a decision. So, and the fight with Jake Paul, I don't condemn him for going 6 rounds with a much smaller Paul, because Paul fought to survive. Let's face it. Once in a while, Paul would, lunge in with a big right hand. Paul fought a very smart fight, his best possible fight, and Joshua kind of bided his time. He didn't take any real reckless chances, and he got to Paul, 6 rounds.
But what did he show in that fight, though, Jack, really? Other than he was measured and careful, and he hit a guy one time clean, and that was the end of the fight. But he let a guy live 5 rounds until he did that. What did he show?
But Keith Sullivan, you're right. But listen, all in all, you can't criticize him for the performance. That's what I mean against Jake Paul. Some people might say, well, it took him 6 rounds. He should have stopped him in 2, 3. But just because a guy's smaller, at times, you let him run around the ring, you measure him, you take.
But Jack, that's the point, though. The fact that he had no urgency in that fight, and he was careful against the guy that has 12 fights, who he's not an elite pro. I mean, he's improved, but the fact that he had to be cautious. I'm not answering it. The fact that he had to be careful with a guy like that. I mean, it's the whole Anthony Joshua package. He talks great, but we know, to me, he has wires upstairs that aren't quite right. He fights with too much trepidation for me. Yeah, that's why I hope our guy Pronger goes after him and gets him and tries to get him out.
And the thing about boxing too, Frank, guys talk about wanting to be the best, they're this, they're that. And when you lose to a fighter, if you're a great pro and you really feel you're the best, you want to get back in there with them the worst way. I mean, remember even going all the way back, one of the greatest fighters of all time, Joe Louis, he wins the heavyweight title against Jim Braddock. He said, "I'm not the champion
until I
beat
beat
Max
Schmeling.
Schmeling." He had to get his vindication, a rematch. You
Marvin
always get
Johnson did the same
asked,
thing, Jack.
who?
Marvin Johnson did the same thing after he won the title. Who did he defend against? Saad Muhammad, the guy that beat him for the NABF title the year before.
Great point. Great point. He wanted to go back in with the guy who beat him. And today you look around. Joshua, you would think, I want a rematch with Daniel Dubois. I have a score to settle. He's not even talking about Daniel
Never
Dubois.
mentioned his name since the fight.
Attitude is, I'm the landlord. Everyone else pays me rent. I mean,
well, he might be the biggest draw, Jack, but he's not one of the top 5 heavyweights. I don't think.
Same with Ryan Garcia. He loses badly to Raleigh Romero. Badly.
Never asked for a rematch.
And no, doesn't want any part of a rematch. He's fought once since, and Garcia's saying he's one of the best fighters in boxing. This. Go back in with Raleigh Romero. Beat him in a rematch. You could sell a rematch, actually, based on Romero beating him. I would be interested in Garcia and Romero in a rematch. I would be very interested if Joshua gets by Pranga. If he fought Dubois next. Let's say Fury lost. You never know what scenario could play out, Frank. Joshua could win his fight with Pranga, and Fury could miscalculate and lose his tune-up fight. Do you think Joshua's then going to call out Dubois? I mean, what's Joshua going to do? He might at some point, though, Frank. He might at some point, Joshua fight Moses Atamo, only because the money might be so ridiculously big. You know, he might be willing in all England this or that, but you get the feeling with Atamo, it's kind of like a passing of the guard. I don't know how many people would think any of the heavyweights in England would beat Atamo, but I still have some reservations about Atamo. I know how talented he is. I think he is going to be the champion, but there's a little bit, not a lot. There's maybe 20% of the Michael Grant syndrome when I think of him. Like people talked about Grant being the app.
I remember that.
Right. Something about Atamo, he doesn't seem to love boxing. Something is missing. I think it's like he does it real well. He likes the money, the notoriety. But
Jack, I think the difference is Michael Grant in the early 90s or late 90s, he looked like a heavyweight of the future. Not so much with his skill. I think his build and his presence sold a lot of guys. I never was on Michael Grant, but Michael Grant never impressed me with his hands. Where I think the difference is with Atamo, I think he's shown us with his hands. You don't see many heavyweights that can put speed and power together like this guy has done so far. And no, he hasn't been tested, and there's certainly unanswered questions. But Jack, who out there can possess or present all those questions? I mean, Wardley is slow. He's not a good boxer, and he's hittable. We know Dubois can be.
He's contractually, he says he's
okay. But I'm just saying, if he wins, what does he bring that Atamo has to worry about? He's not a great puncher. He's not a great boxer. We know Dubois has issues. We know Joshua would get in the ring with issues. Fury, there's a conditioning factor if they ever fought. It's like, who out there do we need to see him fight? And we say, okay, that's it. We saw enough. Now he's the guy.
Talent. Dubois might trouble Atamo, okay? Because Dubois has a lot of talent, and it wouldn't be a lock.
Is it talent or just power?
No.
Is he really a good boxer?
Yeah, he boxes commendably. Yeah, he does. His problem with,
or is he just adequate and he doesn't make many mistakes?
I'm not sure with Dubois. The losses to Usyk, I think, were mental as much as physical, for sure. I think it's just Usyk imposed his will, his work rate, and he fell apart. And in the Usyk rematch, it was a close fight in the 5th round. There was little to separate him, and then Usyk tagged Dubois and finished him. That's all
Yeah,
there
I
was
didn't like the
to
way
it,
he
though.
fought in either fight. You know, I
But
know Usyk is all that is that guy and he's that good, but I mean, I could never be convinced that Dubois would have a shot against
yeah,
Usyk.
there was
Never.
another fight over the weekend. Dmitry Bivol, very quietly in Russia, of all places. He beat a fighter, Michael Leaf, but he beat him. He won every round. I can't figure out the scores. Bivol knocked him down in the first round. Bivol won every round, and they scored. All three judges 118, 107.
What?
Something about the math is off. Because I don't get, he didn't lose 2 rounds, Bivol, and if he did lose 2 rounds, Eford would have had a little higher score than 107. That's what I can't figure out, really. But who cares at the end of the day?
I mean, Jack, he looked good. He controlled the fight with his jab, you know, with the straight right hand. He, you know, in a way, he's vanilla, but he's very good at what he does. He doesn't go out of his comfort zone. He half-heartedly went for a KO, the KO, I think, in the 11th and the 12th, but he seemed to be content with just to dominate at his own pace. You know, he's got a great sense of distance, great defense. I'm not sure he was hit 20 times the whole fight,
Yeah.
but
But
again,
I was
the opposition wasn't all that.
Now, Bivol is probably, and this is smart business wise, probably his next fight is going to be the rubber match with Beterbiev. And it's good on this account. Beterbiev is less of a threat than Benavidez at this point.
Joe Bergman wants to see Benavidez. That's his boy, but I think you're right. We'll probably see Beterbiev.
Right. And the Beterbiev fight, Bivol can get away with fighting Beterbiev without people getting on his back for ducking Benavidez, because he could say, look, it's a rubber match. We're one apiece. I owe it to the guy. He handed me my only career defeat. I beat him in the rematch. We'll settle it to see who's better. And how can you argue with that logic, if that's what's going to be prevented by the Bivol side? But Max Kellerman made a great point today that's really thought-provoking. Benavidez is going all over claiming, well, Canelo's ducking him, this and that. And then when Canelo says, well, you got to prove yourself a little more, do this or that. Benavidez is using the same line with Jay Apatida, the cruiserweight champion. Why doesn't he fight him? There's a ready-made fight, and that's an acceptable fight. That's a good fight, and he does represent a little bit of a threat to Benavidez, maybe more than a little bit of a threat. And Benavidez is kind of avoiding that fight. He's like looking elsewhere.
Who do you think would be the favorite if they fought, Benavidez or Apatida?
Benavidez would be the favorite, really, over virtually everyone. He'd be a favorite over Bivol. I mean, we'll just jump at you. You would analyze it like you do all fights very carefully, a Bivol-Benavidez fight, but on the surface, forgetting the resume, just knowing what both guys bring to the table, it's hard to pick against Benavidez. It really is.
But if there's a style out there, Jack, and a guy that could beat him, it would be Bivol, because Bivol has a chin. He can box and he can fight and he can move. He won't stand there and go toe-to-toe with him. And he's got the 2 Beterbiev fights under his belt to kind of harden him a little bit for a guy like Benavidez. So I'm not sure. And if we're going to bring Benavidez down to 175, I don't know if he'd be quite that killer there. I know Bivol gets there with no trouble.
That's the X factor. But just the idea that Bivol wouldn't fight Benavidez next, if he doesn't, and I don't think he will, is very revealing, because that means his camp regards Benavidez is such a high-profile risk. So they would sooner do these 2 fights, beat Beterbiev. And Canelo has been talking after he beats Mabili, which is no lock, but that's what he says. He's been talking about fighting Bivol. And I believe Canelo. I don't think it's just talk.
And that's what we like about him. He fights.
Right. But Canelo never entertained Benavidez a fight with him. And if Benavidez says, and I don't see how he'd do it, he would get down to 175 for Canelo. And you want to know something that's crazy? I don't think Canelo could beat Bivol. They fought again. But let's say
No,
we have another Julio Cesar Chavez, Frankie Randall rematch situation, and Canelo wins a highly controversial decision, highly controversial, and now he's the champion. I think at that point, Canelo might say to Benavidez a year from now, okay, I'll fight you at 175. And by that point, Benavidez would have grown into a solid 200 pounder. Solid.
the only
I
problem
mean,
with that game, Jack, is I'm not sure Benavidez has peaked yet, and playing the waiting game may actually hurt them. And if I'm Bivol, I'm thinking to myself, I'm 35. This time he's what, 28, 29, Benavidez. You know what? He may not have peaked yet, and he might get better. Maybe I want to go at him now and bring him down to 175. So I don't know if he's ducking Benavidez. I just think
just
that,
making weight. Oh, you're talking about Bivol. I'm thinking of Canelo
right,
now. I'm thinking
right.
Canelo might eventually shock us and take a fight with Benavidez, but he might make Benavidez lose so much weight. For all you know, Canelo might say something crazy like, okay, I'll fight you 172 pounds. Like that's the limit. He might say, I'm a super middleweight, I'll fight you to catch weight, this and that. And he might be willing to offer Benavidez this extra sum of money where Benavidez will say, darn it, how can you turn down this money? And Benavidez might say, okay, it might kill me to make weight, but I'll do what I have to do. And that
I
might be
don't
a
think
real
Canelo fights Benavidez, Jack. He'll never say catch weight. It'll be 168 or no fight. And Benavidez will take it, even if he has to cut a leg off to get to 168. That's the fight he's wanted. That would be a tight. There would be the title would be on the line. There's nothing in it for Canelo to go catch weight 172, 173. Canelo will be, he's still the guy with Crawford gone at 168. I just don't think he would give Benavidez that luxury. And Joe, you may be right, but in all honesty, we've seen enough now. Benavidez is clearly, predominantly, profoundly bigger than Canelo. I'm a little tired of him being a weight bully there.
Yeah, I mean,
come on, Jack. They're not the same size guys. Benavidez is 6'2" and he's 200 pounds.
Listen, to me, the ship has sailed on that fight, but I do think Canelo did duck the fight when it should have been made.
I think he had much trepidation about it, and that's why it didn't happen. Absolutely.
Right. Is it a clear, obvious duck? He didn't want to fight, and Canelo didn't want to fight. I mean, that's just, what it is.
The upside wasn't there, and the risk was too great. I see that. I see that. To me, the fight right now I want to see would be Bivol and Benavidez at 175. The perfect style clash. I think Bitter Beef's a little long in the tooth now. We know that Benavidez is close to his peak. Bivol's probably at his peak, and then he's going to start going the other way. But I love the style clash. I would love to see it because I don't think it would be as easy for Benavidez as everybody thinks.
No, well, because of the movement, Bivol
exactly.
And style-wise.
I mean, but Benavidez brings a lot to the party. The hand speed, he's pretty good at tracking it down. He gets off inside. I mean, it's definitely a tough fight. That would be the fight I want to see. And you know what? Benavidez making the weight would probably have a lot to do with who I picked.
You disagree with me, okay? At least last week you did. I'm getting close to the point where I think Benavidez should just say the heck with it, sit down with his team and decide we're going to go heavyweight from now on. We're not making weight anymore. Case is closed. He's a guy who can put on weight, be a solid 220 pounder with tremendous skills, and how much power he'd have as a heavyweight. Let's not dismiss it because he's a devastating puncher, in the weight class he's in now. Or maybe not devastating is a little too strong a word, but he'll be a decent puncher if he was at 220, okay? He'd be a decent puncher.
Be a lot slower too.
he has. It's a heavyweight. No, not if you let him naturally fight at a natural weight. I'm not saying he has to bulk up. I wouldn't want him to bulk up. That's the one thing I wouldn't want. I'd
But
say Benavidez.
220 is 20 pounds more than he weight in his last fight.
That's fine because he had to make weight in his last fight. He won't have to make weight. That means he's going to be really, really strong. Every fight going forward, not having to make weight. I mean, that's.
I think if he's a heavyweight, Jack, he's James Toney. Different style, but I think he has the same success. There's guys he can outwork and beat, but I just don't think he beats any of the elite guys.
Yeah, but when Toney at one point may have been the best heavyweight in the world at one point, Roy Jones felt he was. At one point in his career, I forgot who was on top at the time, but I mean,
it had to be like 204 at that time after he beat Ruiz. He wasn't going to beat either Klitschko.
No.
I disagree. I don't think there was ever a day Toney was the best heavyweight in the world.
No, but I will tell you this. He wasn't going to get embarrassed against either Klitschko. They weren't going to outclass him. They weren't
because he has a great chin, he would survive with Vladimir.
And great.
Vitaly would have beat him up, but he might not have knocked him out.
No, great skills, defensive ability. He would have been competitive.
Jack, he's 5'8", he's got alligator arms. Could you see him in the ring with the 6'6" and 6'7" Klitschko brothers? Vladimir wouldn't be worried because he can't punch. He would just keep him outside with his jab. Toney would never get inside, and Vitaly would go after him and beat him up. I just don't see that case at all.
Yeah, well,
of Toney being the best heavyweight.
I mean, during the time he beat Holyfield. Now, Holyfield obviously wasn't the same fighter.
He was a corpse at that time, Jack.
Yeah, but I believe after that fight, Holyfield was in competitive fights against good guys. We tend to
Larry Donald picked him apart. He didn't look good against Sherman White. I was there when Chris Bird painted him for 12 rounds in 2002, 2 years before he fought Toney. I thought Holyfield looked like a corpse against Toney. He didn't even look that great in his 3 fights with Ruiz in 2001 and 2.
Yeah, okay. I'm not going to argue in the sense Toney's been.
Whatever Holyfield had left, Jack was a great fighter. He left in the ring after his second fight with Lennox Lewis, where he made a real good run. I had him losing the fight close, but if somebody said he won, I don't think I would have jumped up and down. But he was never the great Evander Holyfield after that.
After which fight?
The second Lennox Lewis fight, the rematch.
Yeah, okay.
November of 99. They fought in March of 99 and November of 99. The first fight, Holyfield did nothing. He lost probably 10-2. Second fight, I think I had it 7-5.
Okay. I was asked for this imaginary fight prediction by Boxing News Monthly. I had to write a few paragraphs on why James Toney against Nigel Benn in their primes. And I said Toney was going to win without any fuss. I mean, he'd handle a fighter like Nigel Benn. What do you think of that?
I agree completely. Toney has a great chin. He would just outbox Nigel Benn. He might not stop him, but he would just be a step ahead of him in 9 or 10 of the 12 rounds they fought. He would take a round off here and there. Nigel would get some work in, but Toney would beat him.
Yeah, there were a couple other fights in the weekend. O'Shaquie Foster beat Raymond Ford, decision. Foster came on in the late rounds. I wasn't impressed with either guy. I mean, they both fought well. I don't consider either guy elite. After the fight, Foster, of course, called out Shakur Stevenson. I give him very little.
I didn't see that fight, Jack, but I've seen Foster fight. He cannot beat Stevenson. He has nothing in his arsenal to beat him.
No, there's nothing there. Can he make, at best, could he make Stevenson look somewhat bad? That's the best he could maybe do because he's a boxer. So Stevenson might have to come to him a little more.
Which is not what Stevenson likes, but he showed he can do it if he has to.
But Stevenson is head and shoulders above him. I didn't see the women's show. You know,
I
Holly
saw
Holm.
I saw Holly Holm fight, Jack, and the only reason why, I'm not big on women's boxing, but
I
Saturday
agree,
night we
Joe.
went out,
Stevenson was.
came
Go ahead.
home. I was flipping around, everybody going to bed. I was flipping around. I said, let me see what's on ESPN. It was women fight. It was a women's card. So I stayed around for the rematch with Holly Holmes and Stephanie Hahn. And Hahn won a decision where I think it was a draw on one card, and then she won by 2 points on the other cards. It wasn't a fun fight to watch. I had a hard time staying awake, but Holly Holm clearly deserved that decision. It was a bad decision. I mean, it was in Hahn's hometown, but it was, it's just a shame because Holm worked her ass off and she got hammered on the scorecards, Jack. She won the fight. Stephanie Hahn didn't do anything. She's a counter puncher. She waited for counter opportunities that didn't came because Holly Holm came in, peppered her, and moved and went around one way or the other, and just wasn't a target to be there to be hit. It wasn't an exciting fight. It's not going to put women's boxing on the map, but it was a very, very bad decision.
And yeah, well, Amanda Serrano was on that card, and
right, she won in the second round. I just missed that fight.
Yeah. I mean, Amanda Serrano is, good person. She's a credit to the sport and all. And I kind of would like to see her retire at this point.
Well, she wants to break Christy Martin's record, doesn't she, with the knockouts?
Yeah, which is fine. And I'm going to tell you, women's boxing is a lot better now than when Christy Martin fought. The Christy Martin's problem is she didn't have I don't want to say the competition they have today. The women just box better today. They're so much technically better. So much. Christy was an amazing pioneer. Amazing.
And she was a puncher and she was exciting.
She was exciting. And kudos to her. And she came on our show. Nothing but good things we have to say about Christy for what she's meant to women's boxing. We could say this. Christy Martin has done more for women's boxing than any single female fight in the sport's history.
There's not a doubt about that. That's not even close.
And so when you want to talk about who the greatest is, you could kind of, say that, her being on the pay-per-view shows. Was she the greatest fighter? No, she wasn't as good as Clarissa Shields.
All right, you just reminded me of something. But before I touch on it, I just want to add salt in the wound a little bit. You see, Shakur did sign with Zuffa.
Yeah. And Eddie Hearn talked a little about it.
Eddie Hearn's the one that announced it.
Well,
and he said Dana White's overpaying everybody, and he said, you're not going to give him $15 million to fight Foster. But my point is, Dana White is not going to be run over in this business.
If Dana
and he's
White,
going to compete, and he's going to make them change, Jack, because he's ahead of the curve.
But Dana White isn't going to keep paying these purses. That's the thing. And something has to give. I'm going to tell you point blank. If it comes down to who's going to win this battle of attrition, Dana White or Eddie Hearn, I think I'll put my money on Eddie Hearn, because Eddie Hearn really knows the sport inside out. And Dana White, he doesn't strike me as really loving the sport. It's something he's doing. Dana White has a certain amount of contempt for boxing. The people in the business, he has money backing him up, I'm sure, with His Excellency, has all this money and cash and all. But what are you going to do?
I think your assessment's right. I think Eddie Hearn will be here when Dana's gone. But I think why Dana will get bored and maybe he won't want to lose money anymore. Yeah. But I think he'll make an impact and he'll be a player for a while.
He's already done it, Frank. He's already made a major impact. I mean, but
all right, here's my other issue. Finish your point.
No, but think of the money he's paying these guys. A fight with Shakur Stevenson and O'Shaquie Foster isn't a big attraction. It's not. No. Even for the hardcore boxing fan, Boots Alexander Zayas is a much better fight than Stevenson and Foster, much better. And that's a matchroom fight. And Conor Ben and Ryan Garcia, that's going to do good business because personalities. Garcia is charismatic. I mean, I'm not the one making him charismatic, but the point is he is an attraction, so that'll do business. But then Dana White's going to have to come to the realization Conor Ben's not that good. I mean, what am I going to do with them?
I agree.
It's not that good.
I mean, we've seen this before where guys come in with money and they overpay. So, but I just think Dana White will be a player for a while. But I do think there'll be a point
tired of it. Eddie
where he's going. Right.
Yeah.
Now, what I was going to bring up is a friend of mine made a post the other day, maybe it was yesterday, his boxing Mount Rushmore. Okay. And his Mount Rushmore was Dempsey, Lewis, Robinson, and Ali. So I commented, it's the same as mine, except I would omit Dempsey and put Harry Greb. I got a text message from Russell Peltz. He saw that. And he said, Frank, Dempsey was Ruthian. He was the biggest star at the time and the most well-known. And, all the things we know about Dempsey. And I responded back. I said, Russell, I know that. But if Mount Rushmore's 4, I'm not having 3 heavyweights. And to me, Greb was a better pound-for-pound fighter with a much more impressive record. So on my Mount Rushmore, we're going to have some stars, but I want to have a guy that is the epitome of greatness as a fighter goes. So my question to you is, and we've kicked this around before, I mean, Hall of Fame. So basically we're saying Hall of Fame is who's famous more so than great. Ryan Garcia is famous, not a great player.
If it comes to fame, this is going to sound crazy, and when I've said it to people before, they dismissed it, that it made no sense to them. I gave them a couple of examples. I said Jack Dempsey in his time was more popular than Muhammad Ali was in his time during the peak of their powers. I mean, look at the amount of people that Dempsey put in the ballpark. What, like 120,000 Philadelphia? Ali didn't sell out Yankee Stadium.
But remember, Jack, those people couldn't go on closed circuit to see it, though. You had to go to the fight to see it, and there wasn't TV then.
And they had a hard time traveling to get to these places.
Right.
They couldn't just get on an airplane like
today.
If
you couldn't see Ali and Norton on closed circuit,
Ali was the greatest.
I think you would have had a lot more people there.
But Dempsey was more popular in his day, even if it's just marginally, than Ali was in his day. That's the
Fair point.
That's one thing. And you could, but it's debatable. It's all debatable, but people dismiss it when I say that, because they don't they can't comprehend how iconic Dempsey was. And if you need an example of how iconic Dempsey was, for decades afterwards, think of how famous Dempsey was. And the other thing I tell them that they can't understand, the more recent people, if I told them Sonny Liston was more intimidating and more scary to opponents in his day than Mike Tyson was in his. Now, that's arguable. If you want to say Tyson was, sure, that's a valid point.
I agree. I think Liston was.
Yeah, but people dismiss that, who aren't that familiar with Liston. Get out of here. Don't tell me he's more scarier than Mike Tyson, that he put more fear in opponents than Mike Tyson. But they can't quite, comprehend that.
I think George Foreman, from Frazier to Ali, it was more intimidating than both of them.
Yeah. A guy like Smoking Joe wasn't overly intimidating. I think
he wasn't big enough, Jack. He didn't look down at everybody. He looked up at everybody. It's a little hard to be intimidating when you're looking up.
I still say the best. Yeah.
Go ahead.
The two stare downs that are the two famous ones to me. Sonny Liston's number one, when he would just stare at an opponent? I mean, did he invent the stare down, like the principles behind it? That's a good question. Where's the origins of the stare down? I mean, when did it actually get started? I can't remember like a Rocky Marciano using it, a Joe Louis, and those guys went into that.
See,
So
I
was
started
something,
watching boxing right when Liston was leaving. So, I mean,
yeah,
Liston did that to everybody. So in my lifetime, he was the pioneer of it. And then Ali picked it up and played the game.
but
But to me,
Ali didn't do it in a way to strike fear in opponents. He did it to get inside their heads. Like he might joke around, "Oh, you don't know what you're against, boy, tonight, this or that," he might say.
yeah,
But
he said
Liston looked
he did
like he
that to
wanted
Quarry.
to. Liston looked at you like he wanted to kill you. Actually, that's what it
I
is.
think the two best stare-ins. Well, you know what?
Klitschko's. I like the double Klitschko look. I always loved that. Like they meant business. Like one Klitschko would be behind the other. Like they're
Oh yeah,
united.
they would vote
Before
right.
going against two against one. I love
Well,
the
Bundini
Klitschko
used to
double
do that
fist.
too to Ali's
Who?
opponents. But I think the
Who?
best stare. Bundini Brown
Houdini.
used
Who
to do
cares?
that.
Houdini would be behind them.
But I'm saying he'd stand over Ali's shoulder and he'd stare like he'd stare right at the guy. But I think the best stare downs I saw, well, clearly the number one best one was Frazier and Foreman. I can't remember two fighters looking at each other so disdainfully as they did for that 30 seconds before the fight started. I think Leonard and Benitez was pretty good, and Foreman and Lyle was pretty intense also.
I don't remember Foreman and Lyle. I remember
Yeah, they got right in
Benitez.
each other's face, Jack.
Yeah.
Yeah, they this far apart. Yeah, and they're about the same size. Nope, neither guy showed any flinch or fear at all.
I think Quarry, the first fight with Ali, came out quick and got in his face, started talking, and Ali responded quick. And
Yeah, Ali said,
it
"We'll
was,
see, we'll
it
see."
was
What'd you
on,
say?
yeah.
We'll see. He got right in
It
his
was,
face.
I mean, certain fighters like Ray Leonard, they didn't believe in the stare downs. It was a
He did it with
distraction.
Benitez, though.
Yeah, he would look away. Speaking of Leonard, there's a troubling story that came out with like one of his sons is heavily into drugs and they have a restraining order against
Restraining
him
order on his son.
from,
Yes, did he
from
have with
his
his
son
second wife,
Daniel, from his
Bernadette?
second wife, right? And his wife is scared, terrified, and their daughter's terrified, and it's like very disturbing, very, very
Leonard did
disturbing.
say in his biography that he was not the best father. So, and I guess it's kind of hard when you grow up with a father like that, and who knows what kind of pressure you're on, or what
Well,
the
that's
crowd
his
you
first
follow.
marriage, his two sons. He wasn't necessarily, the best father. Like his second son, I think Jarrell, he wasn't the best father too. So supposedly, I don't know if that's true or not, and anything
But Jack, how
behind it.
many how many superstar athletes? And I mean superstars. I mean Ali. I mean Jordan. I mean Leonard, Magic Johnson, guys like that. We always hear that they were absentee and they weren't the best fathers at all. And it's like I
Well,
just
look
think
at the
that
boxers. Speaking of, yeah, I saw a documentary yesterday, and it had to do with Willie Pep, and his son was involved in the documentary. That's why I'm sorry to get off. It came out, it's called A Featherweight. It came out in 2023, and it came out in
right.
these film festivals. I was waiting to catch it on YouTube. It finally came to YouTube, Frank. It's not bad, okay? It's called The Featherweight.
I'll have
That's
to
the
check it
name of
out.
it. When you have a chance, check it out. It dealt with Willie Pep when he wanted to make a comeback in the ring in later years. That's all. So it's very directed towards that one particular story. It wasn't directed towards him, working his way up the ladder and becoming a great champion. But your Mount Rushmore, to just get back to that, you know who I could put on that Mount Rushmore if I wanted to? I could maybe Henry Armstrong, conceivably, right?
Based on achievement and accomplishment.
Achievement. Now, if you were going to put a welterweight Henry Armstrong against a welterweight Tommy Hearns, I mean, I'm probably picking Tommy Hearns, but based on achievement, accomplishment, I mean, how do you Armstrong rates ahead, but so Ali and Lewis, the Mount Rushmore guys, how can you leave one of them off? Ray Robinson, how can you leave him off?
See,
To
to
those
me,
three,
there's only a spot for, if we're going to go four,
one
there's
spot.
only one spot left because those three you just named, you can't leave them off. It's impossible to bump them. It's impossible to put anybody above them as far as I'm concerned. All the way across on what they were as fighters and what they meant to the sport and just the whole picture. I just can't see bumping Robinson for anybody.
So they're on Mount Rushmore, and let's say there's a door for an entrance. They need a fourth one, and Dempsey is told to leave. How would you feel about Money Mayweather entering the Mount Rushmore, walking through the door, and telling
I would
Ali
take a drone and I would bomb it.
He'd tell Ali and Robinson Lewis, move over, guys. I get the first seat.
No, he's 5 tiers below those guys, in my opinion, all the way around.
Now,
But to me, the argument is, Jack, to me, the argument is who's number 4? Who's that fourth guy? Because I've never seen anybody argue 3 of them.
How many spots does Mount Rushmore have? Educate
4.
me here. It's always
4.
4. You can't extend it on any circumstance.
I mean, you can do whatever you want, but when Mount Rushmore's 4, so
yeah.
how do you change it? If you could say, I guess you could say, well, the new boxing Mount Rushmore. Can you
do what they do in baseball, platoon guys in and out, and the fourth spot maybe like have them like a year apiece, like
no. Once that's in stone, that's forever.
Yeah.
Now I would hate to have somebody say to Frank, of those 3, of Ali, Lewis, and Robinson, we got to cut it down to 2.
Okay. What happens if someone said to you, Frank, okay, Dempsey will exit the 4th spot, Mount Rushmore, Rocky Marciano?
No.
Legendary fighter.
Undefeated. But I just can't have 3 heavyweights, Jack.
Yeah, so you're discriminating against heavyweights, Frank. Yeah, you're not supposed to do that. Or can we use this logic as well? Can we, between Ali and Lewis, you can't bump Ali's too popular in this day and age. Can we conceivably make Lewis number 5 and bump him off Mount Rushmore and put in Armstrong and Greb? I could make an argument that Greb was greater than Lewis. I could make an argument that Armstrong was greater than Lewis. I'm not saying that's the case, but I can make a compelling argument.
I could see that.
For that.
But Lewis did hold the title longer than any fighter ever held the title. That's pretty hard to beat. And 25 consecutive defenses.
Yeah, I'm playing devil's advocate. I can't think of the life of me anyone since Ali who would deserve serious consideration. Leonard's career wasn't long enough. Yeah, Leonard's not quite there. Or, if you had a list of 10, okay, well, let's see where we could fit him in.
All right, so the guys in the running, let's just say that we agree. Lewis, Robinson, and Ali. The guys in the running would be Dempsey, Greb, Armstrong, maybe Pep. Who else?
Great point. Look at what Pep did. I mean, some guys' legacy becomes great in time, and a lot of the old timers, their legacy gets hurt as the years go by. No one seems to realize how great Pep was, but his winning streak, what he did, 62 wins in a row at one point.
I think what hurts him a little bit too, Jack, is he wasn't a puncher. so he wasn't
He wasn't
considered
a
exciting
puncher.
like the other
Right.
guys. I mean, if it came down to Armstrong and Pep, who gets it? I would probably go with Armstrong. And Langford could be in the conversation too, but they would say, well, he never won a title. So, I mean,
And a great fighter like Terence Crawford's never even going to be in the conversation.
no.
Because he didn't
No.
quite have. Had he had a longer career, I mean, had he fought more and had more bigger fights on the way up and blown everyone out of the water, big fight after big fight. But you know what happens? Some of these guys.
But Jack, he wasn't a star. He wasn't a big draw. Crawford would only get, even be thrown on a list of 20 or so because he was that great of a fighter and technician. But I mean, during his prime, we talked about it. He has no personality. He's not a big draw. He's not a superstar. So it's like, what's the path for him to get on other than just being, he was a great fighter? I mean, Leonard would go on before him because he was a bigger star.
But when you talk Mount Rushmore, Ali had the charisma, the fame, and the performances in the ring. Lewis, same thing. And Robinson, same thing.
Right.
Dempsey didn't have the pedigree inside the ring. He had the fame, the charisma,
See, that's why he wouldn't make my 4 spot.
But Greb didn't quite have the fame. You know what? Let me tell you today what makes Greb most talked about today. He's the only ring legend that they don't have actual fight footage on. That adds to his mystique. No actual fight footage.
Right. But when you look at his record and the fact that he beat 17 Hall of Famers and he beat middleweight champions, light heavyweight champions, and heavyweight champions at 167 pounds, and he was only stopped twice, once on a cut and once he hurt his shoulder. How do you keep that? Who has a better record? I mean, Robinson beat 10 Hall of Famers. Greb beat 17. How do you keep them off? I mean, who has a better record? Langford has a great resume, but not quite Greb's.
If you're going strictly on in-ring accomplishments and nothing more than in-ring accomplishments, I could bump Ali and put Greb ahead of him, if you think of it.
So you could bump all 3 of them for Greb, possibly, except Robinson.
Maybe Robinson, you could, but fame has to do a lot with it. Let's be honest about it. I mean, if I'm going to do something wild and crazy, imagine I dropped Dempsey and said Sam Langford's my guy. You can make a case, and you could argue that.
The only argument against him, Jack, is he was never champion.
Well, he never got a chance. We know why he wasn't champion. I mean, he had to fight everyone on a regular basis. But we agree. We're on the same page. I would drop Dempsey and put in Harry Greb. Okay?
You would?
Yeah.
Well, I hope Russell's watching, Russell. So it's 2-1.
Well, no. But Russell is talking about the fame what Dempsey did.
I understand that, but okay. So
Russell makes a good argument.
So you're telling me that Dempsey's fame trumps Greb's ability and record, and that's a fair argument.
No. My argument is Greb. When a fighter like Greb goes 45-0 in 1 year and beats some top of the line guys amongst those 45 wins, that's insane.
Jack, I agree. And I also think on a Hall of Fame, if we're only going to have 4 guys, we have 3 superstars in Ali, Lewis, and Robinson. Don't you think if it's a boxing Hall of Fame, like one of the guys on there has to be strictly like his credibility and accomplishment as a fighter balances it out more. So it's not just popularity or just superstars. That's my thinking.
My thinking's this: heavyweights. Okay, now we're going to have to go in a second. Ali, Lewis, 1, 2. Everyone agrees, put them in any order you want. And then there's the rest. You start thinking from number 3. And Dempsey, in a lot of people's ratings, isn't number 3. He's down there, maybe 7, 8 or whatever. Okay, but Frank, we'll talk about it more next week, Frank.
All right, Jack. Great show, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.
See you.